Yeah.
Alright, cool. So I'm going to get started. You guys have to leave, which is fine. So I'm just going to talk about how to use LaTeX. I'm going to pull it up and show how to do some things in it. This presentation was made in LaTeX in a variant called Beamer, which I'll talk about. And so the first thing to use it is installing an editor. These are the things I'm going to go through. Installing an editor, using templates to get started, doing some basic stuff with text, bold, italics, things like that. They're different than you would in Word. And then how to do math, which I think is the best part of LaTeX. Are any of you guys in math or physics or use math? Okay. Good. So this will pertain, and this is the reason that LaTeX I think is very useful. I'll tell you a quick story first. So I started using it when I was an undergrad. I think it was like a junior, and I had this professor who required us to type up all our assignments. And it was a proofs class. We had these really long, mathy things, and I would do it in Microsoft Word, and I'd be up to like 4 a.m. typing these things. It was awful, and he's like, "You got to use this LaTeX thing." And so I tried it out, and the first time I tried it, it was terrible. I couldn't use it at all, and I was writing it in the comment, and I couldn't get it to compile or print anything out, and in the comments I had some choice words for the software, and so I went in to get help from him to get it to compile, and he saw all of my very mad comments, and he was like, "Oh, come on." So hopefully you guys can avoid that. That's the idea. And so then how to include graphics is real easy, and then a little bit about Beamer, which is how to make presentations. So if you write stuff in LaTeX, all you have to do is change like one line and they'll make a presentation out of it, sort of. And it's really nice for making talks. And then how to include bibliographies is also pretty simple. And so I'll talk about those things. So first, installing an editor. So if you have Windows, the combo of using MigTech and WinShell works pretty well. So MigTech kind of installs the back-end stuff, and then WinShell is kind of like an editor that allows you to do it. And before I go any further, I mentioned I'll put these slides online. And so they're at andyreagan.com, which you can send me the link.
Yeah,
I'll put it up on the website.
Yeah, so we have a place for professional development links on the GSS website. And if you wouldn't mind, we could link to this as well.
Yeah, so they're right out here. I guess it's going to be hard to see.
Awesome.
But on the website, if you scroll down, the slides are right there.
Great.
So, this. Okay, so Windows, MigTech, and WinShell, and I have Mac, so I use TechShop. Works great. It does everything. So.
Can I ask where do we
Yeah.
get it? Where
Okay.
we get that?
The best place to get those is just Google it. The
Google
first
it.
link, just download it.
Okay.
And yeah. And if you have Linux, I would expect that you know how to do it.
Come on, you guys.
So I'm just talking about the first thing, like where to get an editor that you can use to make this. So if you have Windows, you can use those two things. If you have Mac, TechShop works great. Those to use it. And then to get started, using a template is the best way. Nobody really writes a document from scratch. So there's templates. This is a way to get started. There's some built into TechShop. I'll post some up. Like I'll post how the code for this presentation. So and then you can see like, oh, I want to put columns in. Here's where you put columns. I'll just copy this in and change the text. And that's the way I do everything. That's the way everybody does everything. So I'll put some up there that you guys can use.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Is there like a UVM thesis link?
There is, and I have a link to it in this. So
Awesome.
yes. And the cool part is, one of the ideas of Tech is that you can just spend time writing your document and then it'll format it. You'll worry about all the formatting things. And so the thesis thing, you just write your thesis, one line, just use this thesis formatter and format the whole thing. So you don't have to like go in Word and move things around. That's the use. So starting with some basic stuff, if you want to make bold text, I usually forget how, so you can just Google it or whatever. But if you want to make bold text, you just type, you start by typing \textbf, and then inside the text that you want to make bold. So I'll just show you this really quickly. So in this folder, I have a little example file, tech demo. Right, so this is a mostly blank document. So you can see at the top, it's just telling you what kind of document it is. These packages, like all this is stuff you can worry about later. But you can just put your name in, what document you're doing, what you're doing with it. end document and make your title. So this blank thing, if I just hit typeset, will print out this homework 1 and your and that's from this little the make title command, because I gave it that information. You could also give it the date, and it would print that out as well. So if you want to type some bold text, so here's some, and then you just do text VF bold text. So it's gonna bold that text. And to do italics is similar. Italics is, you can do it 2 ways. You can use text IF, I believe works. No, that doesn't work. Text IF, that doesn't work. Well, the way that I know to do it is use emph, so it'll emphasize that text. It's now emphasized. There's a lot of ways to do basic things. You want to underline it. It's also pretty basic. You just type underline, put it in the middle, it'll underline it. Those are kind of some basic text things to get started. And if you want to know how to do any of these things, just do a quick Google search and the first result is, how do I make bold text? You're not going to remember all the little commands and things like that. So, okay, jumping back. Okay, basic stuff. And so, yeah, so math is really where I think LaTeX is useful, is including math. It makes it really easy. If you've ever tried to use Microsoft Word's equation editor, it's a real pain. So I'm going to show how to do some basic math entry. So the idea is, in here, if you want to include math in a line, you have to enclose the math in dollar signs, right? And that'll tell the tech that whatever's inside of that is going to be math, and it'll interpret it using its math interpreter. So if I want to do x squared, to do a squared, you just do the caret, like your normal thing, and that's, close that in the parentheses, and it'll print out, a nice looking little x squared. Right. If you want to do more complicated things, it's also pretty easy. You can do underscores. We'll do that. The sine and cosine functions are already in there. And if you want to do any of those things, you can just search them pretty easily. What else? Okay, so that's just including it in line. It's surrounded dollar signs. And then if you want to include math in like the middle of a line, so you have some text and some math and some text, the way to do that is just surround it in 2 dollar signs. Right, and it's going to print it out right in the middle, in between the lines of text. And then it gets a little, you can keep doing more things. Like if I wanted to make an equation, so I want to say this equals something, which is going to, and I know it's going to break onto multiple lines, you can use different little environments. Like if I use this line environment, so anyway, the dollar signs are just short for equation. So double dollar signs is the same as just putting it inside begin and end equation. It's going to be the same thing. And you'll see that it has a little 1 and numbered it. And the way to suppress that is to include stars. So if I forget and I only include the star on 1, and I tell it to, it's going to give me an error. So, but it'll say what the error is, like, found this equation star, and it didn't end the equation. So that'll suppress the numbering. So there's other environments you can use. There's align, array, matrix, and they're all used to make matrices. You can use a table, begin table, to include tables of text. And those things are all put in the same way. So if I want to use like a multiple line equation, I would use align. And then LaTeX, for the alignment character, uses an ampersand. So it's that curly guy. And so it equals, equals, say, x cubed, right? And then you want to do a new line. A new line in LaTeX is always double backslash. And then you could have stuff on both sides of the alignment character, but now you're on a new line, so you can put in a new alignment character. Say that equals, right? So this is going to do it in 2 lines. And it aligns wherever it finds that alignment character. Wrote because of the backslash. And so that's kind of the basic things. If you can make matrices by using arrays, which are just the same idea. You just say begin array, use the ampersand to separate things, and then you use double backslash to make a new line. So I could put this all in a little matrix pretty quickly. So array, and then with an array you have to tell it how many columns you want. You can use L for left aligned, C for centered. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just so LaTeX, does it completely ignore white space?
Yes.
Except for single spaces between words?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
so it ignores line breaks, like if I was to do this. And then I'm hitting Command T to make
It's not going to come out because you started doing the array.
Yep, start an array, so if I end it, is it gonna, probably not. It's gonna have some equal signs in this one here. Missing $sign inserted, so array and array. This is a little nerve-wracking, doing it right in front of you. So, it's saying it's, it comes up with a little error, and this happens a lot, missing $sign insert. So that would mean that the $sign is a closed math. So it thinks there was some math that wasn't put into math, which is the case, because an array is not a math environment. It's more general. So I'll have to close my little math signs, the carets and the coast and the sign, inside of the math environment. Missing $sign. Didn't like some.
Is it because you got rid of the align?
There we go. Okay, so you're right. The array environment needs to be within a math display. Okay, so as it turns out, that's how you make the array. But they made it centered columns. And I guess one other thing that's pretty useful is if you're doing math and you want to include like parentheses or brackets or something that wraps something bigger. So if I put a little parentheses on the left and the right of this array, then they're going to be kind of little. That's not really what matrix look like. So if you include these little guys that tell it left and right before this one, it's going to know to make those the full size of the array.
If
So-
you're doing, like, you need superscripts for chemistry, would you do the math environment?
Yep.
Would it automatically italicize like it did the X?
Right. Okay. So that's a good question. So these are all italicized because they're in a math environment. So they're like variables, little I, little s. Usually they're italicized. So if you want to include text in a math environment, which is what you'd be doing, you would use the text environment. So you wrap this in text, and you just have this. And if that was a chemical, for example, so if that was CO2, very talked about on this day, it's gonna look real nice. And you can include anything in the superscript. Like if you want it to be an ion, you can put a plus above it. And another thing, if you're including more than one symbol in a super or subscript, you need to enclose those in brackets. So, if I wanted to do down to the 23, I'll show you what would happen. If I don't close it in brackets, it'll put the first one down, but it won't put the second one down. So we need to enclose the whole thing in brackets. Right, it's a weird molecule. So that's the basic math stuff. I usually think of it when I'm doing it, like what you need to do. Is there anything else that you guys have questions about that you would do and you usually type? That usually will cover you. Writing math equations.
Fractions.
Fractions, very, very good. Yes, I forgot about fractions. So if I want to make CO2, CO23 positive into a fraction, I'm going to use the environment called \frac. and it takes two arguments, two little things in brackets, the top one being the top and the bottom one being the bottom. And it works within the math environment, so it would be in math use fraction. So if I use a fraction here, backslash frac, so I'm going to include this first little top thing inside of it, do the second little one, and then call it the over denominator. So that's going to be that little guy. That's how to do fractions. And I mean, any of these things, when you're writing it, if you just like come across, I need to write fraction, just LaTeX fraction. Google it. Yeah.
So if I'm writing and I'm using the same isotope like over and over and over again, is there a shortcut or?
I mean, I would just copy and paste.
So you just copy and paste.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use, so if I was going to use another matrix, I would just copy this guy and then put a little lower.
There, depending on how complicated of the thing you want, there is another thing you can do. You can define a new function that repeatedly does something. So, for example, in physics we have this stuff called Brockette notation, and you can. So if you're always going to be talking about this complex thing, but every time the third number is going to be changing, you can make a new function that's everything else with the third number being a variable. So you can find all these new functions.
Right, so I'll show you guys how you can do that. For example, this is going to be some of my homework. Here's a file, and so these are all definitions that I made. And so for example, I define frac. So rather than typing frac every time, I just type \f. So this is a little more advanced stuff. I wasn't really going to get into it other than mention it, but I wanted to find \frac to be back f. So I would use just back f like I would use \frac. And this actually makes for typing a lot quicker. Because sometimes I take notes in my classes in LaTeX, so make little shortcuts like these. Like longer symbols, like math BB, it's going to print out like a fancy math letter. So that's going to be look like a complex number, so I just define that as C. But some people, they'll look at their tech files, they have hundreds of these. Just their own language, basically. And so I defined the logarithm. So I used logarithms a lot in math, and I didn't want to write text log every time, so I just defined it as log. And that's something you can do. And it makes writing things multiple times really easy. So you can define, like you said, what your isotope as back I. Whatever back I was would be useful. So that's another useful thing to know for sure. So that's some math. Going back. Okay. Let's see what else I have. So that's some basic how to use math stuff. I think the next thing is how to improve graphics. So it's very important that you have cute cats in your talks. And so how to do that is it's not super hard. LaTeX is kind of picky about graphics sometimes, so they need to be either PNGs or JPEGs, or I know it won't take GIFs. For example, it'll complain if you put in a GIF, and it'll say it doesn't support GIFs. But for that, if you go in and you look at this presentation, which is example pres.tech, right, where I go down and I say, you just say include graphics this. So if you just if you were to just drag the picture in, it'll create this. What it won't create is this little bracket scale thing. But that just scales the picture. So that's how to include graphics. I mean, it's pretty basic. You can use the centering to make it centered. So also pretty useful. And then so if I typeset this, it's going to actually print me talk. Which I think I have. Oh, actually I closed it. So, and one of the advantages is if you make talks with it, they're PDFs, which are viewable on any machine really easily. I mean, any computer can open a PDF and slide through it. So. Okay, so using Beamer was the next thing I was going to talk about, which is what I used to make this. And to use Beamer, I mean, so the advantage is you can easily make presentations. So you've already written a lot of like the chemical formulas that you want in your paper, in your article. All you do is you just copy those right into Beamer, boom, they're right on the slide. No rewriting any of that stuff, which is great. If you've written a paper, it's easy to make it into a talk. You just wrap it in Beamer and break it up into slides. So an example would be this file. So I made this, modified it. Well, I just compiled it. So you can see. So to include, so a lot of this stuff is kind of garbage. You don't really need. But to make a Beamer thing, where before I said document class is article, you're just going to put Beamer right in there, and then it'll make the presentation for you. You can use themes. You don't need to. So the default theme, if I comment this out, comments are percent signs. If I comment out like the Dresden and the color theme thing, and I compile it, it's just going to have, no color theme. Right? It doesn't have a theme in the document. But those things make it look pretty nice. And there's a whole bunch of them that are included. I won't list them, but it makes it nice and colored. And some themes can do things like you can put up at the top what section you're in, and it'll highlight or in that section. So I don't know if you guys noticed it did that, but so it's kind of, so you can see that I'm in this section, so I highlighted it, which is pretty nice. And they always will include these little controls down here at the bottom to go through slides. Maybe that jump to sections. Page 10. Okay. So that's basically how to make. I'll show you some more of the Beamer thing. So in Beamer, the way it works is you do all this stuff in the beginning, which is really unnecessary. But some of these packages are useful, like the AMS math gives you more math symbols you can use in the math environment. The URL and the hyperref allows you to include links. Those are very useful. AMS theorem gives you theorem environments. If you're doing theorems and proofs, you just do /theorem. You'll do that. And then you just find all those things. Then, like anything else, you just begin document, and it's going to end with an end document. So for each frame, just back frame, and then include the frame in the brackets. So I gave it this information about title, author, and institute, and it just made the title page. So I didn't have to do any of the formatting about how it looked, it just included all of that. And for other frames, you can use this little guy, frame title. That'll print the frame title. For sections, you just put in each section. You can use section, subsection, and sub-subsection. Are all fine. So also, it automatically makes a table of contents if you wanted to. So you just do new frame, the frame title will be its outline, and then just table of contents. You want to do that. And so I made all these sections. And so to make in a frame, what's useful is making bullets. So these are where I made these bullets. I use this itemized environment, kind of like enumerate, but within itemize, we include an item, and whatever's after that is bulleted. So that's super useful. Pause does this thing where it prints a slide without it, and then a slide with it. So it makes things come onto the screen, so it'll wait to include that until you advance to the next slide. So I pause before both of these, and I put some space in the middle. Refill, some space, and that's really all there is to it. Some other things you can do. You can include columns. So down here in the next one, you haven't seen the slide, but I use columns. So it looks kind of crazy, but vspace just deleted some space. I used -3 millimeters. And I began the columns environment. Made a column that wide, made another itemized, put some items, put vfill, ended that itemized. Made another column, put another list of items in it. And you're just kind of nesting these things. So you can keep nesting them. And if we jump back to the slides, you can see here just some columns that are nested. Right here, some columns. Pretty easy stuff. And then I think, do you guys have any questions about Beamer? Things you usually do in presentations. There are some options to make slides dissolve into each other and slide on some of those PowerPoint flashy things. But they're generally pretty distracting. so I don't like to use them. But these are some basic things about presentations, and I mean you can really, it's the best part is just dropping in code that you've already written. Just drop it right in. So going back, oops, there we go. So it takes a little bit to actually make that. But if I jump to page 24, to include citations, you want to do it both regular articles and in Beamer. It's pretty easy. I'll show you how to do it now. And if you just include the site, it'll make a little number, and then when you just do the bibliography at the end, it'll include everything that you want. So here are the links that I've included for you guys, things that I refer to. So APOS is this big database of symbols. So this is going to be really useful. So the first thing is this art of problem solving website. And they have a list of symbols to use in LaTeX. And there's a lot, right? And I mean, it keeps going. You can do any type of crazy math things you want. I use the 2 a lot, so I do little arrows, so I know that one. And like, you know, if you want to use an implication, you can use a capital right arrow, which is on the top there. Those are things that I use a lot. Other things, I guess dots are pretty useful. You can include dots on the bottom, in the middle, or like this, any way you want. And, I mean, there's just everything you want to do. And you can find things with any of these symbols crossed out. You usually just put a not in front of it. But, so those will probably be on here too. You put dots over anything, any little accents you want, tildes you want, more functions than you want. So these are pretty important, command symbols. So if you just type it like you saw me using an ampersand, so you do delimitation, then if you just were to type it in the middle of the text, it would complain. It'd be like you're trying to align something, but there's nothing there to align. So these symbols you actually need to include in a backslash if you want to use them in normal text, and then it'll know that you want to use those symbols specifically. So like the brackets are reserved, right? That you include stuff. So if you're just including brackets all over, that it's not going to compile. So you use the backslash and then the bracket you want to use. And there's not too many things for that. I guess backslash itself. Slash backslash. Because 2 backslashes is a line break. SEO, I'll say the whole thing. Some of these are pretty cool. Fractions, right? Fractions squared. And then you can use the left for the, this is kind of what I was showing you for these. Okay. And yeah, so for shortness, yeah, if you just go X or Y, you can include that in brackets, and it's the same. You need to if you have more than one thing. Some things usually you don't need to use brackets if you're using something that's more than one character, but it's just one command. So you could go up to big O plus, and it would be fine. You don't need to include that because there's only one thing. It's just easier to write, but you get really good at actually typing with bracket if you use it. So those are all the symbols that you really mostly need. And there's others. You can do all the Greek letters. Okay, the second link I included is about how to use Beamer and Beamer. So this is kind of what I was doing. This one's a lot longer and a lot more in depth. It's like a few hundred slides. But it's a Beamer tutorial in Beamer. So this guy goes through his outline. He does all of these things, how to do all these things in Beamer. Okay, and they're more of the things that you'd want to do. Maybe you could do the dissolves. So just include some code, how to use frames. I mean, this is the basic stuff, but he gets into some more advanced stuff too. So this is the basic. So he goes through a lot of stuff. It's a pretty good reference, like font themes. So you can change your fonts, change your font sizes, use different alignments. Things in the centers. Okay. The other reference is the. Okay, so this is great. Using the LaTeX style for UMPs. So I didn't know that this was available until I was doing this presentation and was sent out to a listserv, somebody replied like, "Did you know this exists?"
Why is it hosted at Brandeis though?
That's so weird.
So I'm not sure. It's out of this directory, right?
He must have graduated from UVM at some point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I mean that's
Would we not have the UVM template on?
yeah. So to use this, I went back. Okay. I think this. So he's got the file out here, thesis.style. So to include this, you would use at the beginning of the document, \use package. To include that. You need to download these two and download that. Because this one relies on these two. So that, I haven't actually tried to use this, but it sounds like it worked pretty well. He has an example of how to use it. So use package thesis. I mean, this is another little example article. Redefine those things. Advisor, and so the package uses these things to print out. So,
I just think it's funny that it's called a concrete work of abstract genius.
That's good. That's pretty good. So, I mean, that'll be useful in a couple of months to me, at least. And I think the final thing I included was how to make simple bibliographies. Well, I'll show you first. So, okay. I'm lost now, but here's the text file for this. So to cite things, you're just going to use this cite, right? And whenever you want to cite something, and this text here, I'll show you where it comes from, but it's just something that you've defined as that citation. So I made a citation, I called it Beamer Tips, and I cited it like that. All of these things, and then to include your bibliography again. It's as simple as include bibliography, and its name, you want to name it the same as the file. Example pres style is plain. So you can do different styles too.
Is this compatible with like other, what if all your citations are in EndNote?
If they're in what?
Like EndNote or some program.
No, so I'm really not sure.
There's probably ways to export from EndNote to here, but you
Yeah.
probably can't make EndNote talk directly to it.
I'll show you the format.
Yeah,
So the format, I want the full example. Format for this is you make a bib file like this, and you can see with a little shortcut, Beamer Tips, which is this. Author, title, how it was published. And then use URLs. Notice it first gave me an error because there were the percent signs, and because %20 is spaced in HTML, but there was things I thought I was commenting it out, so we just had to put some backslashes in there. And yeah, so these are all different ones. There's a lot of different styles. You can use book, article, journal article, and it'll format them correctly. So I'm not sure if you can.
You can probably find an EndNote export
Yeah.
format, because EndNote has
sure.
these fields, so you could write your own that
You
would
could just write a
export
little
it
script
that
that
way.
would do this one.
Well, yeah, but then you have to know how to write Perl, which is like,
Or any yeah. So I'm sure someone's probably good at it.
yeah, it's gotta be somewhere else.
Do you download if you're downloading a citation from the internet, or from Google Scholar or whatever, do you use a particular style of citation download, or do you have to literally write them all out?
So I'm not sure if it would automatically generate this, if that's what you mean. When you download it, it says here's a citation for this, and if you want to put it in here.
But there's lots of different formats for the citations, like this RSS.
Yeah.
There's there seems to be like a standard one. And I was
Okay.
wondering, can you just like load it straight into it?
Probably. I don't use these a lot. I mean, I mainly use the time for it's like writing up my homework and taking notes and things like that. I haven't really written any articles yet. I haven't written any articles yet, but yeah. And so this is the same for presentations and for regular documents. Just like, have you guys ever used the citations? Yeah, I mean, there's different kinds. So I could cite one of these as a book. And then, so to compile with this style, you have to do a couple things. So you gotta save your bibliography. This part's a little bit confusing. So if you save your bibliography, go back to your slide, to your document, your TeX document, and then you have to compile it in TeX. It's gonna make it. And then you have to compile it in BibTeX.
BibTeX format is the same syntax. Although it uses, it's not exactly the same.
You have to compile it in div tag then, and it'll find all those, and then you have to compile it in the tag twice, and then it'll make it. So that's a little tricky. I think you have to.
So yes.
Yeah, so I guess that's the basics. That's all I had for you guys. If you have more questions, feel free to let me know. I think she'll.
Yeah,
put
so
this
I'll
out in the
probably
link.
put it out in the grad news email if that is that okay with
Okay,
you?
yeah, that's
The link to your
definitely fine.
website.
As a follow-up?
Yeah,
Do you use leaks at all? Or
for
leaks?
in the document.
No, the software leaks actually, it's like it is an interface for using LaTeX, but it's more visualized. Like,
Okay, so I think I've heard about this.
but I mean things are easier. But I was just wondering if you can do things here that you cannot do in leaks.
Well, you can do everything here. So the answer is probably yes.
Okay.
I think once you get handy writing things in this format, it's really easy. So
Oh, is it? Because like leaks is something like Word, but it's
Mhm.
actually
It's running on top of.
so what
Yeah,
you see
it's
is what
running.
you get.
Yeah,
Type
yeah,
editor.
yeah. But then it's in LaTeX language.
Mhm. So yeah, I mean that would be great.
So how do you
If you wanna
insert?
try to do that.
I was also wondering how do you insert MATLAB code? Have you done it at all?
If I want to include MATLAB code in it,
Yeah.
so if I have some MATLAB code, then let's go find some. So there's going to be some MATLAB code here, right? Okay. So if I have all this code and I want to include it in the assignment, copy it all, and then I'll go back to tech. I'm going to do it with some tech demo. Okay, and now I'll use the environment called verbatim. So this is, maybe this will be like what you're looking to do, but it'll include it in a mono-spaced.
And will that ignore special characters then, so you don't have to worry about brackets, etc.?
Yep. So there's a lot of characters in MATLAB that
Right.
it normally wouldn't like all these are comments, and it makes it look kind of codey. Because I think whatever font that is.
I think the font's called typewriter.
Yeah,
It looks like it.
Yeah.
It's very, I think it's a Unis-based font is the idea. So for code, yeah. So it didn't include any of this would all look like next one. There'd actually be lots of errors.
Yeah.
Erasing.
On the topic of exporting bibliographies, things like Science Direct have a VidText export format.
Okay.
So you could just export them directly, and you could theoretically just have a BibTeX file, I guess, that you pasted stuff into, and
That would be the
call
idea.
that your bibliography. And
Yeah,
it
you just
would probably work
include
better
that.
than EndNote, to be honest, because EndNote's a nightmare.
Yeah. And you can, one of the other things you can do is if you have a really long bibliography, right? So say you're writing this file, you want to include a bibliography at the end. Let's do the presentation. Well, I don't know, but say you want to include at the end, you can tell it which one's not to include. Like say, include this bibliography file, which has got lots of citations in it, but don't include these 4. And so the one link I didn't show you guys at the end of the presentation is how to make simple bibliographies. So it's just I think it might be the first hit if you search how to make bibliographies in the tab. You can include them right at the end of the document, but I don't really think that's as useful. I think having them in separate files really what you want to do. So this is the other bit, tech. So you include them like this, and you can include this little guy before is no cite. So don't include those. Right? These are 3 citations, and then put your bibliography. And these are, I guess, these are the other styles. Yeah, so you can have a pure one-word citation, things like that, which I would actually think you probably is generally used. Okay, so it's called insert. So, I mean, I'll probably use this. It'll do these things automatically. Is the idea. You never have to go through your bibliography and sort it by title. So yeah, I think makes sense. That is all. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy.